welcome back to another episode of Southern Woke.
I'm Marina.
And I'm Kaylin.
How are y'all doing this spooky October?
Y'all, it is spooky season, and that is when Marina is at her peak prime strongest.
Yes. I'm not all the way there yet because I haven't dyed my hair black this season yet, but it's coming.
Do you do that every October?
Pretty much. And then I just let it fade all year.
And then you have to break out the Wednesday Addams costume again. It's tradition.
Yep. I even named one of my cats Wednesday, so that's how hard I go.
Alright, y'all. Just a couple things I wanted to talk about before we get into this today. I know we haven't really talked about this on air a lot lately because it's just been getting so much media attention. You don't need us telling you about it too. But the Gabby Potito case.
Yeah, that's a biggie. And I don't know, maybe y'all would want us to do a full episode on that once more stuff is out. Right now, I feel like I haven't really wanted to talk about it yet because I'm just still so mad that Brian hasn't been found.
I am too. Did you see the video of the drone flying, looking at the parents from over the fence, and as soon as they see the drone, they go in, yeah, with the garden.
Yes, but also I watched something with, I don't know, who was it, Joe Rogan or some other manly figure. They were talking about I highly doubt there's a bunker under their backyard in Florida.
Wait, that's a theory? They think they're hiding Brian in a bunker
Yeah,
somewhere?
in
I
the
didn't
garden,
even read that.
because the mom kept going outside to do the garden work or whatever, and then the drone would fly and they'd go inside. It was a conspiracy.
Oh, it
still is.
No, I didn't hear about that one. There's no way that's what's happening. He's probably out of the country somewhere, let's be honest. And I'm sure the parents know, but... Well, the reason we want to bring it up today is they just, recently announced the coroner report that she died of strangulation, which, I mean...
Which further proves who else would have just
Exactly.
strangled her. Everything about this case just has me so sad. Gabby was so beautiful. A lot of these girls are so beautiful that I just go missing. I feel like we need to just start talking more about the missing girls. And boys. Not just girls, but... Damn, I don't know. It just puts it in perspective. Another reason I haven't, talked about this case a lot more is because, I feel guilty talking about it because it's already getting so much attention. There's so many other cases, but then again, Gabby was also a person, and this case is important.
I know. It is kind of sad that some cases get way more attention, especially if the girls are attractive than the other ones. But...
And boy, tell me that Brian doesn't give you the biggest Chris Watts vibes.
He does. I saw so many pictures of them side by side.
Yes. And also, he gives me, I had this friend growing up whose dad was a narcissist and, did some bad things, and he gives me those vibes, too. So, I hope he's found.
They're going to find you, Brian, if you're out there listening to Southern Woke by any chance.
But it's so scary, though, because, people have been saying that he's lived on his own in the woods before for a long period of time, but people are also saying, but he's never done that while not ever being seen. But who knows if he was seen the first time? I don't know. It's just scary to think that he really, he's about that life, so he really probably could thrive out there in the wilderness.
We will find out soon, and if we find out an update, we will let y'all know. But if y'all would like us to do a full episode on it, we definitely will. But like I said, if y'all are keeping up with any type of true crime, y'all probably have heard everything about this case already.
Yep. Alright, let's get into the actual spooky stuff.
Alright, y'all. To start off our October episodes, we are talking about some of the most haunted places in New Orleans, Louisiana. And now I know a lot of our listeners come from Louisiana, so if y'all know these places, these are actually going to stand out to you. A lot of you probably have been to some of these locations before. If you're not from Louisiana, that's totally okay, because...
You've probably heard about our spookiness anyways.
Yes.
I mean, it's referenced in Vampire Diaries / The Originals. It's mentioned in American Horror Story. So many shows.
Yeah, if you saw American Horror Story Coven, you've basically been to New Orleans.
Yeah.
So you know what's really cool, though? Actually, have you been to the Coven House in New Orleans?
I don't think so. Not to my knowledge. I've probably, but not knowingly.
There's a really cool Korean barbecue restaurant I like to go to in New Orleans, and within walking distance from there is the Coven House. So every time we eat there, we just walk over there and look at it.
Well, now I have to go see it because me and my bestie Megan, she's been telling me we gotta go get Korean barbecue. So I'll see it soon.
Korean barbecue that just opened in Ham is really good too. Alright, so where do we want to get started off today, Marina?
I guess I'll get started with the Andrew Jackson Hotel. Okay, so in the late 1700s, the hotel was a boarding school for young boys who had mostly all lost their parents to the yellow fever that wiped through. In 1974, the first of the two great fires of New Orleans swept through the French Quarter and killed either 5 or all of the boys. There's conflicting facts on that, but as well as many others in the city. It was then converted into a U.S. federal courthouse, and then it was demolished and rebuilt as a hotel in 1890. It's said that the little boys from the boarding school haunt the place, and they're often called mischievous. Guests complain they hear children playing loudly at night and call the front desk, but there's never actually any kids. One woman claims she woke up to 3 boys at the end of her bed that screamed and then vanished. And then, this is one of my favorite stories. In the 1990s, a couple was staying at the hotel for their honeymoon because of the paranormal stories they had heard. They were spooky people, so they wanted to stay. And the last night of their honeymoon, they went on a haunted city tour that ended at the Andrew Jackson Hotel. And they told the group that they had been staying there and hadn't experienced anything yet and said the place wasn't haunted. But then they left the next morning, and after processing, developing their pictures, they found a picture of them sleeping that was taken from the ceiling so high up that they saw the fan blade in the picture.
That is just so disturbing.
I know!
I would end my life in that moment.
There was also been a man that was sleeping and then claims he woke up to the static of his TV, knowing damn well he turned the TV off and the remote was on the nightstand. So when he pointed it back at the TV to turn it off, he saw a young boy, and then the man screamed at him and the boy vanished. In the most notorious room for its hauntings is room 208. There's been numerous paranormal sightings, one from a little boy named Armand, who died there by either being thrown off the building or he jumped himself. Conflicting stories again. He usually wakes people up with his laughing. Some people have been pushed out of bed, the sheets pulled off, lights turn on and off, the sink turns on and off, things are moved around. He is just a little demon boy, but not actually a demon, you know? And there's also a housekeeping ghost that literally just cleans the rooms. So yeah, that's the Andrew Jackson Hotel. If you want a warm and cozy yet spooky stay in New Orleans, go there.
If I'm going to stay in a hotel, it's going to be the Hilton or something like that, a name brand hotel. I'm not going to stay in some old ancient hotel that's going to be haunted.
I would love to do that. I would I would do that for that reason. See, if I'm going on vacation, I wouldn't want to stay there.
Why don't you guys stay in the Myrtles overnight?
Because I don't have no one to go with or the time. It's also said that Andrew Jackson's spirit haunts the place, but that's highly unlikely. Yes, he passed through here, but he was our president. I don't think he's just gonna hang out there. Ooh, the coffee got me.
That's kind of how the rules work. If you're a president, you can't become a ghost.
At least not come back to some random site you passed through in Louisiana.
Alright, sticking with the topic of Jackson's, let's talk about Murals on Jackson Square. So that's located in the French Quarter, and Jackson Square is kind of the main, I don't want to say the main heart of New Orleans, but it's a huge... That's funny, you're wearing a shirt that's literally from the restaurant on the square. So if you know New Orleans, you know Jackson Square. Well, in the square, Murals is a historic Creole restaurant, and it's housed in a 19th century structure. So the property was handed from person to person a couple times. It was first acquired in 1745 by John Baptiste d'Estrande. If I'm butchering his names, I'm so sorry. But he was a French royal treasurer of Louisiana. And then the home was later purchased by Pierre Philippe until the Good Friday Fire of 1788, where the home was mostly left destroyed. The property got sold from one Pierre to another Pierre. No big deal, it doesn't really matter. It actually one time passed through the Poydras family, which Poydras Street is another well-known street in Louisiana, so it's funny when I heard that name pop up. And then finally in 1916 it landed in the hands of Frank Tamarina, who opened a pasta company and a small grocery store in the building. Eventually, it became the Spaghetti Factory, which is the name of the restaurant. And then in 2001, it became Murals. So it's a pretty old restaurant. It's passed from hands to hands multiple different times. Guests and staff report shadowy figures darting about, disembodied figures with strange faces, and strange knocking sounds coming from within the walls. The most famous legend surrounding Murals is that in 1814, Pierre Jourdan lost his dream house in a poker game, and he took his life as a result in the building. He did it on the second floor of the building, and now where the second floor of it is, there is now a seance lounge. I would never do that. Many people have claimed that they speak to his spirit here, which manifests as a glowing otherworldly light, and apparently multiple people have seen this and spoke to him, and they all count it as being the same way. And they keep the table stocked with bread and wine, just in case his spirit decides to stop in. Also reported across the property are objects sighted moving on their own, EVPs spotted in phone calls. What are EVPs? I read that and I...
Electronic voice phenomenon.
Okay, I'm glad you knew that. I figured it was something like that, but I didn't know exactly what it stood for.
It's the voices they catch on the radio that your ears can't hear.
Okay, learned something new. And they say there's a mischievous spirit also on the property that's known for throwing glasses at high speeds. So if y'all ever want to go have a little haunted dining experience when you leave your haunted hotel, you can go ahead and stop by Murals in Jackson Square.
Or Monty's on Jackson Square.
Or Monty's in Jackson Square. That place is great. Check it out.
It's my best friend's stepdad's restaurant. I don't even know if they've opened after the pandemic. But if they're open, you should go.
Beignet fries. Need I say more?
Alright, I guess my next one is going to be Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop. So this one is pretty interesting, and I hope it survived Hurricane Ida, because it is one of the oldest buildings in the French Quarter, built in the mid-1700s, and maybe one of the oldest continuously operating bars in America. So, that's pretty cool. Named after pirate Captain John Lafitte and his brother, because they were instrumental to helping New Orleans win the Battle of New Orleans against the British at the end of the War of 1812. Dude, that was so choppy. There was just so much. Okay. But they operated a warehouse in New Orleans to help disperse the goods his brother smuggled. And people claim to see full-body apparitions of Jean Lafitte in that bar. He never interacts or speaks to anyone, and he just stands in dark corners staring at people, and when they notice, he disappears. Also, I don't have this written down, but it's something that I heard, that like whenever he left 2 treasures, and one of them is thought to be buried underneath the bar, and that's why his spirit stays there to just like guard it. But I don't know if that's true, but he was a pirate.
I've always wanted to like come upon like treasure buried somewhere.
Yeah, don't we all? Hello, Outer Banks.
I've actually never seen Outer Banks.
Oh, also there's like apparently a ghost of a woman on the second floor there that is a lot more talkative and likes to learn your name and whisper it to you all night long.
Alright, y'all. Next we have the New Orleans Pharmacy Museum, which I'm going to go ahead and just skip all the different backstory. This building also passes between a bunch of people's hands, but y'all don't really care about that. But here's what you should know about it. So it's housed in an 18th century apothecary building. And it spans all the way back to 1804, where Governor Claiborne passed a law requiring that all pharmacists take a licensing exam. Because before then, you could literally sell medicine to people, and you didn't even need like any type of exam to pass. You could just sell whatever. So people were selling all kinds of random things as medicine. It was a real problem. So they kind of fixed all that together, and the very first person to ever get their pharmacist's license, his name would be Louis DeFilo Jr., and he became America's first licensed pharmacist. And he actually opened his own pharmacy in this building on site, and eventually he sold that on to a guy named Mr. Dupas. So that's the creepy guy that we're about to talk about in this house. So apparently Mr. Dupas performed experiments on enslaved children in his pharmacy. Now, nobody really knows if this is true or not. This is the legends that happened. Apparently it's one of those creepy doctor doing crazy experiments, and he owned the pharmacy at a time when slavery was legal, and apparently he was operating on enslaved people, and many of whom were pregnant. So his ghost has been sighted throughout the pharmacy in a brown suit and a hat with a mustache and a devilish grin. Infants can be heard crying throughout. One cautionary tale says that pregnant women are very susceptible to Dr. Dupaw's presence and are often compelled to leave the area due to bursts of extreme emotions or the unsettling feeling that something may be wrong with their babies. The little girl spirits have been spotted often within the museum. Staff and visitors report objects, most commonly books, being thrown around the room. Others hear voices and feel inexplicable cold spots.
That one seems spooky.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go to the pharmacy.
I want to go.
Who goes to a pharmacy museum, first of all? Like, that sounds... Okay, it's probably kind of cool to see, like, what type of medicines they used to sell, like, before we knew medicine, but still.
Honestly, it would probably be more interesting than the Death Museum that I went to in New Orleans, because I thought that was going to be really cool. But, I mean, it is. Like, they have a lot of stuff from, like, serial killers and random dead things. I don't know. I just thought it would be cooler. But that other place is haunted, though, so I'm more inclined there. Alright, I guess we're going to get into a big, juicy story now. It's probably going to be like our star of the show. And that is the LaLaurie Mansion of New Orleans. So, Lady Delphine was born in New Orleans on March 19th, 1787. I feel like so many people that we talk about are fellow Pisces. But anyways, she was a wealthy white French Creole woman, and her family owned lots of plantation land. Her first two husbands died young, suspicious, and left her lots of money.
Giving off Carol Baskin vibes.
They left her lots of money, making her one of the richest and most eligible bachelorettes in the country. Then we have Louis LaLaurie. He had graduated med school at the bottom of his class in Europe and came to New Orleans, and he was 20 years younger than Delphine, but yet they hit it off, I guess, and she got pregnant, so then they got married in 1825. They were known for throwing lavish parties that everyone in the city wanted to be invited to. And around 1831 to 1834, people began spreading rumors around about how Delphine treated her slaves. People also noticed that they owned an oddly high number of slaves for the size of their home, and when asked about it, she would explain it away, and she would overcompensate in public and be extremely kind to the African Americans. If you continued to ask her things, you would be uninvited to the future parties. A lawyer even stopped by the home one day to remind her of the Code Noir, which was their slavery code. And it basically said in there, the wording of it was, if you beat your slaves, you'll be fined, but you won't, be arrested. So they kind of read that and ran with it. But the lawyer reminded her of the code, took a look around, and everything seemed fine, and he left. But there's a story that one slave jumped from a window to escape a punishment one day, and that window is actually still cemented shut today. And then we have a little 12-year-old slave girl named Lee, who was brushing Delphine's hair and accidentally snagged it, and Delphine began whipping her, and Lee ran to the roof and jumped to her death in the courtyard, and she was buried there, and she's known to haunt the place today. But, and Delphine also kept a slave chained to the stove at all times so they would cook for her whenever she wanted, and wouldn't ever let her leave. She would starve the slaves, and when her kids would feed them, she would beat her kids. On to the next page of torture. Okay, so now we get to the meaty part. On April 10th, 1834, the LaLauries were throwing one of their parties when a huge fire in the kitchen broke out. The guests moved the party elsewhere, which is super freaking weird. They just said, okay, fire, let's move it on down the street, but that's actually so New Orleans. So I guess it is believable in that sense. But anyways, Delphine and Louis dipped, And they went on a boat to Alabama and then to Paris because they knew what the people were about to find. So when the firefighters finally arrived, they found an older enslaved woman passed out from the smoke, and she was chained to the stove by her ankle. After reviving her, she confessed to starting the fire because she was afraid she would make a mistake and Delphine would bring her to the top floor where no one ever came back from. She told them they should take a look in the room above her, which were the slave quarters. They found the doors locked, and after beating them open, the sight and smell sent many of the men running. They found 7 slaves clinging to life. And then, okay, so this is where all the stories start to get really iffy, because if you've seen, like, Coven, they really overdo it, and, like, some stories are just twisted and stuff, but I'm just going to tell y'all some of the things that have been said that the slaves were found, and, yeah, okay. So, one was supposedly hanging from his neck with limbs stretching so far it was beginning to tear his muscles. Then there was one with the eyeballs taken out and then his eyes sewn shut. One with feces in their mouth with their mouth sewn shut. Body parts removed and rearranged on people. Genital mutilation. One woman had all her bones broken and then stuffed into a 3x3 box. And then they had Spider Woman, who had her limbs rearranged to look like a spider. And people with holes in their heads with spoons nearby to stir their brains. They're believed to only still have been alive because of the maggots that were in their brains eating the dead tissue. So, one man was pinned to the wall with his face dissected. And then, like, on top of that, like, the fact that they're all still apparently alive, clinging to life, though, they were gathered and brought to the local jail where they had a public viewing where over 4,000 people came to see them. Like, I'm sorry, what?
What?
I guess, like, back then, human experimentation was hella interesting. And they just wanted to see what was going on. But, like, the people were still alive, allegedly. I don't know. I just find that part really gross. So, a lot of people wonder, why was Madame Delphine like this? And one explanation is that maybe she was a fan of this whole human experimentation thing going on. Because, like, I'm sure y'all have heard many stories of, like, doctors out there, like the one that you just talked about with the pharmacy. Like, there were just people out there doing experiments just to see what would happen, to learn. Some believe that she was just a straight-up sadist that loved inflicting pain on others. And there's also a narrative where her mother was killed on one of their plantation lands by a slave, and so Delphine was taking the slaves and, like, interrogating them really harshly. But who knows? So the couple apparently ended up staying and living out their lives in Paris, and Louis died in a hog hunting accident. But Delphine's story is a little bit more interesting because there are rumors that she may have come back to New Orleans and continued to torture. There's a grave in the St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 that says in French, Madame LaLaurie, born Marie Delphine McCarty, died in Paris December 7th, 1842. But the French records show that she didn't die until 1849, but her body has still never been found. And then, years later, construction on the mansion revealed many bones indeed were buried underground and in the walls. And over the year, I can't believe, out of all, like, I get, like, in New Orleans in the French Quarter, like, buildings are constantly, like, rebought and turned into something else. It's a thing. But why this building with this story? Because over the years, it has been a bar, apartments, a furniture store, a conservatory for music, a house for young delinquents, and a school. Tell me, everyone that was in those environments did not have the spookiest time of their lives.
I would absolutely not. Can you imagine, like, your parents sending you to school and you find out you're in that house?
hell no. And then another really interesting thing is that in 2007, Nicolas Cage bought the mansion for $3.5 million. But now it's privately owned by somebody, and you can't go in it, you can't do nothing to it, you can just look at it.
Okay, so it's really weird that you just brought up St. Louis Cemetery #1 and Nicolas Cage, because both of those are in my next topic.
Well,
about
yeah,
something
it's a
completely
big
different.
spot. Yeah. That's all I have on that. Like, I don't have to go into the numerous hauntings because, like, can you,
Yeah.
like, I think I remember, like, passing by there one day and, like, actually feeling spooked. But I don't know. A lot of places in New Orleans do that to me.
I'm spooked constantly when I'm in New Orleans. I feel like I'm going to get mugged in.
Yeah,
So let's
whether
just
it be
real.
the paranormal or real life, like, honestly, my anxiety is on edge walking anywhere.
And then the traffic, if you're driving, that's awful too.
Oh my god, the last time I was there, I had to try to parallel park and, like, my tire rim thing, like, ate the sewer and, oh my god, I hate it.
And yeah, as you mentioned, this is shown in American Horror Story Coven. If you've ever seen, like, the lady in the attic, y'all probably all know what I'm talking about. It was a really disturbing scene.
Kathy Bates was the one that played Madame LaLaurie.
Alright, so that'll bring us right into our next topic, which is St. Louis Cemetery #1. So, sure to offer a few goosebumps, St. Louis Cemetery #1 is the oldest and most famous city of the dead in the Big Easy. Opened in 1789, the cemetery houses more than 600 fascinating above-ground tombs and beautiful monuments in crumbling rows. Many of the city's notable dead are entombed in this one square block, including Voodoo Queen Marie Laveau and Homer Plessy. The site is also home to the future tomb of actor Nicolas Cage, who purchased a 9-foot white pyramid tomb inscribed with Omnia ab uno, which means everything from one. Since the line between past and present feels thin as you navigate the narrow walkways, visitors must be accompanied by a tour guide to make sure guests don't slip from this life into another.
I actually went on a tour there before, have you?
No, I didn't.
I have, like, pictures of Nicolas Cage's tomb and, the supposed tomb of Marie Laveau. And there's also, like, one of the, from the Plessy versus Ferguson case, one of those guys is buried there, and, like, some...
Plessy,
yeah. It was interesting. I loved it there. I love going to spooky old cemeteries. And apparently my, like, actual grandfather... I say it like that because, like, my dad didn't even know him. He died when my dad was a baby. But apparently he's buried in one of those, like, St. Louis numbered cemeteries, I think.
I don't want to be buried there.
Well, I don't think there's room.
Sure. We'll make room. What?
Ooh, since we're on that topic, let me mention... Okay, so, like, what was it? The 1700s that the yellow fever came through?
Yes.
So... there was this thing that the Spanish came up with because, you know, New Orleans went back and forth for that period of time between, like, French and Spanish rule. But if you've ever been to any of these cemeteries, they are hotter on the inside than they are on the outside because the Spanish began burying above ground, and it gets up to 300 degrees Fahrenheit inside of the tombs. So they basically act like a cremation stove, because they didn't embalm the bodies. So they basically just were able to turn to dust really fast. And after a year and a day, they would go and collect the ash, and I don't know what they did with it, but after the yellow fever settled, people went back into these tombs and found scratch marks on the inside. Because people were still alive that they thought were dead. And so they started burying people with bells on their feet, so that way... Oh, and this is also when the graveyard shift term began, because they would keep someone on guard at the graveyard at night to listen for the bells on the feet. So yeah, I thought that was a cute, cool little story.
Can you imagine that's your job, like, listening to see if people are buried alive?
Yeah. I'd be all for it. I mean...
Imagine that as an icebreaker, like meeting somebody at a bar, and what do you do for a living?
Like,
you won't believe.
You'd be on the job for months, and then all of a sudden you hear that bell.
And you
and
would
you
go
just call out boss, there's a bell.
I'd be overthinking and hearing a bell out of everything. I'd be thinking I heard a bell every
There'd
5
probably
seconds.
be trolls out there with
Yup.
those bells like.
That'd be so funny. So they just ring a bell. They should put that in a movie.
Oh my god. It really would happen because literally don't put New Orleans past anything. Anything could happen there.
Alright, y'all. Also, Charity Hospital. So this is actually really creepy. I don't know so much about it if it's actually haunted or not, even though it says it does. But we have a giant hospital in New Orleans called Charity Hospital, and in 2005, in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, it got completely destroyed. The levees obviously broke and it flooded. Water reached the basement generators, and apparently when that happens, the entire hospital just can never be fixed again unless they rebuild the entire thing. So it's just a vacated hospital that's there. But it's a huge building, and legend has it that the ghost of the founder, as well as those that died in the hospital, because apparently during the hurricane a lot of people died there, still haunt the halls. But that's just funny because if you know New Orleans, you know Charity Hospital is really creepy. And there's this Facebook page that I'm part of that I think somebody has to add you to it because I don't remember who added me to it. It's called Abandoned Louisiana. Have you ever seen it?
Oh yeah, I'm in it too.
It's really cool, but people break into the hospital and post pictures and videos of them on the inside, and obviously it's illegal and we're not really condoning that, but it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, I think my brother has gone there, to be honest. I think he told me some crazy story, but then I black it out because I try to black out all the dumb shit he does. But yeah, I'm sure it is spooky as hell.
Oh, it's so creepy on the inside. It's dark and ran down and
And it probably does have a lot of homeless people hiding in it.
I'm sure it does. That's the same thing with there's actually an abandoned Six Flags. The same thing basically happened during the hurricane. We have Six Flags in New Orleans that's now shut down, and it's an entire amusement park that's just abandoned. If you've seen pictures of it, just go ahead and Google New Orleans Six Flags. Everything's overran with vines. It's super creepy looking, and people go in there all the time for a good haunt or a good spook. But there's also a ton of homeless people that live in there.
Fun fact, some of the Jurassic Park scenes were filmed there because I remember one time Lindsay, my best friend Lindsay, she was an extra in it and she wanted me to go be an extra, but at the time I didn't have a license, so I couldn't legally be an extra.
Yeah.
So that sucked.
Damn.
Because we were going to be extras on Pitch Perfect too, the one they did at LSU. But anyways... There actually is a really cool video on YouTube from the group TFIL, and they went and explored the abandoned Six Flags, and the police caught them, ran them out. Yeah, don't try to go up in there because there's really police hiding all over the place, and they got police dogs that'll run your ass down, and there's also apparently alligators all within.
Yeah, it's pretty serious to try to get in there. You'll get in trouble. Don't do it. But it's fun to look at other people do it. I feel did you know they're actually reopening Six Flags? Just heard that the other day.
No?
Yeah, they're
Where?
apparently rebuilding one in New Orleans.
Oh. They got room for that?
Yeah, I don't know where they have room for that.
Who is funding that? Because what a dumb idea. Next year we're going to have another major Category 4 hurricane.
Don't even speak that over us.
Oh my god. I feel like we just need to start preserving what we have in New Orleans and just stop adding shit to it because it's going to be a waste of money. Alright. My next story is about a place called the Palace, or also known as the Sultan's House. It's also known as the Murder House. It's the second house of a wealthy businessman, Lafitte. He rented it out for extra money though. And in the 1870s, he was approached by a man who wasn't from there, but he lays cash out on the table and asks if he can rent the home for the summer with his family. So the man begins moving in his family, all very beautiful people, all look really nice, well dressed. But then after a few days or weeks, the neighbors notice that the home goes dark and the windows were shuttered, and the neighbors knew they were in there because they smelled food cooking and they heard the music, and they even would hear screams sometimes. After a few weeks, the house goes silent and begins to smell really bad, and so police are called out for public nuisance. The first thing they notice is the lock is busted on the fence, and they entered a slaughterhouse. The home has been haunted ever since. People smell the incense burning from the house, and they hear the music and the screams. And by the 1950s, it was converted into apartments for all other normal people to experience the hauntings. But, like, I don't think it was ever solved, like, how did that whole family die? Was it the sus dad? Was it some random person that came up in there and just killed everyone? Because they said, like, it really was a slaughterhouse. Like, the bodies were just laid out everywhere.
So, we need to pass a law, like an ordinance, that if somebody dies in a house in a horrific way, the house just, nobody can live it in there again. You can't remake it into something else. It just either needs to be like a historic site and shut down, or you need to demolish it. Like, what if somebody died in the room we're sitting in right now, and you just don't know? They don't have to, like, disclose that information to you when you move in here. I mean, maybe they do, but I don't think they do. Marie Laveau could have lived in this apartment building.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Although, you know, last night I kept hearing weird things. And then I woke up this morning to find my door unlocked.
Stop.
I've never forgotten to unlock my door. To lock my door. So, like, I'm very scared because either my memory is slipping or someone unlocked my door. But everything was still here this morning, so I don't know. Maybe it was just a ghost. Didn't want to steal nothing, just spook me.
I think I'd rather it be a robber. Ghost.
No, I wouldn't. Well, I started checking all the rooms. I was so scared. My heart was pounding. I'm like, if anybody is hiding in here, I've got a gun.
Alright. I have one more, and it's not even really like haunted, but it's pretty creepy. It's the St. Roch Chapel. St. Roch Chapel. Do you know how to pronounce that? I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but it's R-O-C-H if y'all are interested. So, the small St. Roch Chapel, it's in the St. Roch neighborhood cemetery. It's not exactly haunted, but it is definitely spooky. The 19th century shrine filled with various ex-votos or offerings in the form of prosthetics, false teeth, artificial eyeballs, crutches, notes, and other miscellaneous objects left by those either in need of healing or who have prayed to St. Roch and recovered. So basically, people during like the yellow fever epidemic, which hit New Orleans in the 19th century, would go to this chapel, and then they would offer up like all these fake prosthetics in order to be saved, and it kind of became like their own little church community. And then over 40,000 people in the New Orleans area succumbed to the fever over half a century, but not a single one of the community of that chapel ever died or got yellow fever, which is pretty crazy to think about.
We should do that for COVID.
Seriously, like maybe we just need to all go start offering up prosthetic items to this. Alright guys, let's get everybody to New Orleans next week. We got it. Contact the CDC.
Oh my god, CNN is gonna have us on the news. These young Louisiana lunatics.
The mask mandates are never gonna go away here.
Oh god.
Yeah. Popular site for tourists apparently at the chapel, and it's a prime example of the exotic Catholicism of New Orleans.
Whew. Yeah, we got some. New Orleans is thick with the Catholicism. God, that's a tongue twister.
Louisiana in general is, because it came from the French.
I actually have a little snippet about voodoo and Catholicism. It's kind of tied in. So, like, New Orleans is kind of like one of, like, I'd say the home of voodoo when it comes to the country. And it's a religion. Some people don't really view it as a religion, but it is. And it comes to us over 300 years ago from the African slave trade, and then we had over 10,000 refugees from the Haiti Revolution. So we have Haitian, African, and what we call New Orleans or plantation voodoo. And voodoo is monotheistic, so that they have one vast god, but it's not like a personified being. And the cornerstone of their religion is honoring your ancestors and your family ones and your spirits and like elementals. And as you all know, Marie Laveau was our very famous Catholic voodoo priestess here. And you can go see her alleged tomb in the St. Louis cemetery.
Voodoo is also like very misrepresented in media. I was watching a video about that too. Because every time you think of voodoo, you're thinking of somebody with a doll like stabbing somebody,
Yeah.
and that's not even voodoo. That's hoodoo, which is like a different variation. Just like I guess if you think about witches nowadays, there's like your good witches and then your bad ones. It's kind of the same way.
I know. I really want to look more into voodoo. Like, it's just, I love learning about the like spiritual religions.
It's very interesting.
Okay.
We should do an episode on religions one day.
I'd be totally down. Or just like do one on each religion.
Yeah.
I gotta sneeze.
God bless.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying not to do it again. Okay. God bless me. I don't have to do it again. Okay. So I guess I'll tell one more story. It's a little short one. It's a little old one, I think. But it's of Fort St. Charles. So during the transition from French to Spanish rule, Spain sent a guy, Bloody O'Reilly, who marched down to the Fort St. Charles and assassinated 24 of the top-ranking French officers and made a prison in the building for all the remaining soldiers, and would occasionally have them hanged on a flagpole in front of their families in the city to show they're not going to tolerate any revolutionary behavior. And the building is haunted now by the French. Yeah. Oh, wait, no. By the Spanish, because the French came back a few years later and gathered all the Spanish soldiers in the parking lot and assassinated them. And the ghosts of the Spanish soldiers, that is hard to say, is seen walking around. God. But
Spanish soldiers. It is hard to say.
Soldiers. Y'all, please say it out loud so we don't feel crazy. But anyways, I just thought it was interesting how, like, literally the French and the Spanish were just, like, assassinating groups after groups, and then now I feel like there's so many just old generals and things wandering around New Orleans.
Yeah, there's a lot of things running around New Orleans. I don't know if they're all paranormal or not, but...
Definitely not.
Alright, y'all, jokes aside, that New Orleans is so packed full of history besides just all this scary stuff. And if y'all ever do get an opportunity to come view it, it's pretty cool to come check out.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. I'm trying to think if there's anything, like, last minute, like, any spooky stories I can ever... Oh! I have a fun little spooky story. I mean, it was scary, but not paranormal scary, but spooky, like, scary. So, like, one time, me and my friend Amanda, you remember Amanda from Olive Garden?
Yes.
We were in New Orleans. We had just came back from a G-Eazy show.
I think I know this story.
Yeah, and we wanted some food because what else do you do after going to a concert all night? So I think we were in line at Rally's in New Orleans, and we're literally like at the window, and I'm in the passenger seat, and all of a sudden our car just gets T-boned, and I look out to see who the fuck just hit us, and it's this dude, and he's got, and it's around Halloween time because it's like the Voodoo Festival is going on. Is it called? I just like blanked out. Like, is that really called the Voodoo Festival after we just talked about voodoo? But anyways, that was going around. So like everyone's in a costume, and this guy had his face painted with a skeleton, and he was obviously effed up on something to where he just T-boned us, and he like his foot was just on the pedal. I had to like climb out of Amanda's car door, and like he just had this dead glare just staring into my soul. As he's like just in a skeleton, and I'm just like, I can't. I'm over it. I'm not coming back to New Orleans like this.
That is such a New Orleans-y type story too.
Yes. And then we had to drive her wrecked car all the way back to Hammond, and I was the one that drove it.
Yeah.
Oh, that night we also got stuck because there's this really long bridge. It's not the causeway. We went the other way around Hammond, and we were stuck due to a bad accident involving cops or something on that bridge for like 2 hours with a wrecked car after that situation.
What a way to end a concert.
Yeah, but literally when you go to New Orleans, you just always come back with a story.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's also home to what is marketed as America's most haunted attraction, the House of Shock, which is like our big haunted house.
Oh my god, yes! I have such a love for that place because one of my mom's like ex-boyfriends / lifelong besties works for them or like knows the people that started it. Now it's been bought by like some Hollywood production type business, but he used to like, well, honestly, yeah, he used to like just get us VIP tickets and we'd go in. And one time for their pre-shows, they have these like really sick like shows. I don't even know how to describe it. They got people hanging from hooks and like all kind of stuff. But the guy that night called me up on stage.
I would not have gone up there.
I had to because of course like I'm sure it was planned. Sandy wanted me to go up there and be freaked the hell out, so I go up there and try to be brave, and he starts drilling a drill into his nose, and I had to pull it out. There's literally blood that flew on me. Yeah, this was before COVID, obviously, but I love the House of Shock. Honestly, if y'all really like haunted houses, it's really one of the best.
I went like 3 years ago, and yeah, that pre-show, it's very scary. It's like one of the only times I've been to a bunch of haunted houses before, and that's like the only time I've ever really felt like uncomfortable and scared. And I think it's because it's so like demonic. Like they were literally summoning a demon at the pre-show, and it's actually funny because I was like sitting there, and this was like 4 years ago, Caitlin, so I was much more scared than I am now. But we're in the middle of the pre-show. They're like all saying like "Hail Satan," like they're actually like summoning a demon, and I'm like freaking out on stage with all my friends. Well, all of a sudden in the middle of nowhere, like they just lost power. The entire House of Shock lost power, and so like while he's on stage like summoning the demon, everything just goes black, and you just hear somebody from the crowd shout, "That's the power of Jesus!"
Oh
and
my
everybody just
God.
started busting out laughing. So that made it a little bit less scary, but. Yeah, I was really creeped out. As soon as the power went off, I was like, is this part of the show?
Oh my god, that reminds me, because like every year, there was like a solid, probably like 5 years in a row I'd go and bring like a different group of friends, but usually Lindsay would always be one of them. And one year it was her roommate that came with us from LSU, and she was very religious.
Oh, you're in the wrong place.
Very religious. She could not even get past the pre-show. She like walked out of the line and left. Like, it's not for the faint-hearted or the very religious. Or at least the ones that take it so seriously to where that would just scare them.
Yeah, it was really intense, y'all. But it was worth it. It was really fun. And they like sell beer. Like you can like while you're waiting in line, you can be drinking. They're walking and selling you shots. So that was really cool. It's like a festival
vibe.
Yep.
Like you'll be going to buy your little concessions, and they have people on the grounds to spook you too.
Yep.
They have. I love it.
When the little like scary people would be walking up in line, I see them scaring people behind me. I tried to act like busy, like so they wouldn't come by me or act like I was in the middle of something.
Dude, I will never forget. They have this one girl. I think it was like my first time going through, and I felt something like brush against my foot. And there's a girl that's only her torso and her arms.
Yep.
And she was walking on her arms, and she was like in this bathtub, and she just grabbed my leg out. Cause like. It's one of the few haunted houses that I think they're like allowed to like touch you. They can't like hit you or anything, but they just like a little brush.
Yes, they can touch you.
Ooh.
Alright, y'all. Well, that about wraps up our haunted New Orleans episode. Of course, we'll be back with another spooky themed episode for y'all next week to really post for Halloween.
Yes, indeed.
Alright, y'all. Well, y'all stay safe out there. Go check out New Orleans if you ever get the opportunity to, and we will see y'all next week with a brand new episode.
Yep. Y'all stay woke.
Bye.